Hi, welcome back to Defiant. And in the Defiant virtual studio today, we have Tim Palmer, DOP, on, well, The Last Kingdom is what we're talking about today, which has just come out on Netflix, the fourth season. But first time I talked to Tim was 10 years ago when he just shot a drama for the BBC called Road to Coronation Street on the Canon 5D Mark II, for those who remember those days. And it was the first drama to be shot on that camera and actually won a BAFTA the year after, single drama BAFTA the year after. And what do you remember of those days, Tim? You were quite new, quite
Oh,
pioneering with that camera at the
well, it
time.
was that. When I first saw that camera at the BSC show in 2009, I just had a gut feeling that there was a future there for filmmaking, potential filmmaking in a way that had never been done before. Because up to that point, the only way to achieve a sort of filmic 35mm look on video, not on film, but on video, was to use the Pro 35 system on the Sony Digibeta cameras, which, it had its own particular look to it, but it was not a very user-friendly way of working. You lost a lot of light, and you were quite limited by what you could do and the bulk and the size of it. So when I saw that 5D, and actually obviously with a full frame sensor and its ability to record HD video, I was very, very interested, and I started experimenting a little bit with it and got together with some friends. And actually, first thing I did was I met up with a fashion photographer friend of mine, and I filmed the shoot. We did a sort of video version of the stills shoot on the 5D, and I used manual focus Nikon lenses on it, and pulled focus myself and just had fun with it. But the results looked absolutely beautiful. The lighting looked great, and the skin tones and the depth of field, and it was all very manageable and doable. So I just experimented. I kept experimenting with it, and when I met Charles Sturridge for Road to Coronation Street, we were talking about cameras, and I said, "Well, have you thought of doing it on this?" Because the Alexa had literally just come out, but there weren't many of them around, and they were very expensive to hire. And on the budget of that show, we wouldn't have been able to get one. It was either Digibeta or nothing. So he was intrigued by the 5D, and I showed him a lot of what I'd done on it, and he said, "Well, let's try and make it work." And I got together with a little small rental house that was also pioneering 5Ds to use on commercials and music videos, and they had all the lenses and accessories. And we shot some tests, and I mean, it was not a straightforward process getting permission from the BBC to shoot on the 5D. I mean, in fact, they didn't let us shoot on the 5D. They said categorically no, because it was not a viable official HD format. So we did, in fact, shot the first 2 days on a Digibeta camera with a Pro 35. But on the second day, Charles and I just got so fed up with it that we took our chances and finished the rest of the day on the 5D. And when the BBC saw the results of the latter half of those days' rushes, they said, what have you done here? Why isn't everything looking like this? And we sort of didn't really say anything. We just said, "Well, do you want us to just keep doing this?" And they said, "Yes, just keep doing it just like that." So we kind of did that, and it was too late for them to pull the rug from under our feet.
Amazing. And now we were just talking about the 5R, which is coming up, and you see this as a particular parallel to the Mark II.
Well, I mean, it's the sort of, I've sort of been out of the stills camera stills video camera game for quite some time now, but it seems to be, reading between the lines and press reports and commentaries about it, Canon seemed to be trying to do with this camera what the 5D Mark II did with 5Ds. The first iteration of the 5D was a pretty basic, good, decent camera, but nothing more than a good stills camera. And the first Canon R was sort of the same. It was a bit of an evolutionary camera, sort of work in progress camera. But with this one, I think they're going to get it all right, and it'll be as I think it'll be as revolutionary towards video filming and stills as the 5D Mark II was in its time. I mean, the difference nowadays is that back in 2010, small cameras didn't exist, and that was part of the the major appeal of the 5D, this tiny footprint of the machine, of the device, so you could actually acquire shots that you would never be able to do normally because it was so small. But that's not really an issue these days because you have the Alexa Mini and the Venice that will break apart, and small cameras are part of vernacular now. So in a way, I mean, any stills video camera could only be effective on a large, a well-budgeted production as a C camera, insert camera, extra bit of acquisition. I can't see it on this type of these sorts of shows being a main unit camera in any way.
Okay. All right. Up to date now, The Last Kingdom, which is a great show, and did you shoot the fourth season? Were you the only DOP, or did you partner up?
I was. It was split. I was originally going to do blocks 1, 3, and 5, so episodes 1, 2, 5, 6, and 9 and 10. But I ended up only being able to do episodes 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. So I alternated with Sergio Delgado, who did episodes 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, and Ashley Rowe came in and did episodes 9 and 10.
And what was the feeling coming into the fourth season? Because it was quite a gap from season 3, I think I'm right in saying. Was it the same again, or was it a lot more needed or wanted from the director?
Well, it was the same director, Ed Bazalgette, who shot the last episodes of the previous season. So there was definitely some continuity there. He finished off season 3 and kicked off season 4. So he was very well known to the producers and his way of working. So any changes were more of a script and practical, based on practical purposes. And the main change being that Last Kingdom alternates between a summer and a winter shoot. And so season 3 was winter, season 2 was shot in the summer, season 1 was shot in the winter. So this season 4 was shot in the summer. So we filmed from early April. It filmed from early April till the end of October, I think. And I was there until the end of July. So that really affected how it was shot in a way, because you weren't dealing with snow and winter and cold weather, but you were having to deal with the other problems, which is very strong, very high sunlight and kind of bleached out, fairly barren landscapes, and shorter nights for night shoots, and so those types of issues. And what Carnival said from the outset is that it was pointless to, I think, what the problem they had in season 2, which was a summer shoot, was they tried to work against it and tried to make it wintry by cutting having to sort of shade the sunlight off a lot of the time and finding locations that didn't look too summery and looked a bit more cooler and shadier and that sort of thing. But this time, I think the Nigel Marchant said, well, we have to go in and embrace what's there, and rather than try and make it something that it isn't, take the quality of the light and the landscape and make it feel quite bleak and parched and hot, and
Mm.
play the highlights and the contrast and make it, bring out the best of what's there, rather than try and create something different that doesn't have a starting point.
So did that mean you didn't have overhead silks? You didn't try and control the light as you might normally?
Very little. I mean, I only, because it's surprisingly windy there in
Right.
Hungary on the plains. You get a big wind that comes in off the Urals and from the east, and it's like a constant sort of Scirocco type of wind.
Mm.
So the electricians are very nervous about putting things up like that. So we really minimized it. And point of fact, no, I can count on the number of fingers on my hand the number of times I got a big thing up, and usually it would only be because if we were forced into a frontlit situation and you had one of the lead actresses, you just can't film with big panda eyes, so I had to get something up. But
Yeah.
generally no. But I've had a lot of experience of shooting in countries where the sun is very high in the sky, and I've done a lot in Malaysia. We've shot Indian summers and strike back there, and you can always, even at high noon, if you angle things just so, you can make that sun be slightly backlit, just enough so that it's not so it keeps the shadows off the faces. And it required a lot of careful planning and sun mapping from me in the prep period, to know that every location we went to, we could chart the path of the sun. And the director was very accommodating, and so was the first AD. And I would suggest and advocate as strongly as I could that we would block scenes facing this way at this time of day and shoot at that time of day. And I would say 95% of the time it worked like that. A few times we got caught out, but it's not even getting caught out. You just knew it would happen, because you've got 10 hours of filming outside, and you can't film everything in the same direction. So,
Sure.
and you run out of directions to shoot, so you're going to have to come back. And so there you go. You just live with it.
And a lot of setups, a lot of battle scenes, a lot of conversations, and obviously fighting going on,
Yes.
which is all part of the show. How did you handle that for the horse riding, all the battles? What kind of movement did you use for that?
Battles we did. We had a big battle on the beach at the opening of episode 1, and that required, it took an awful lot of planning, mainly logistical, just to get the equipment and the personnel onto that beach at the right time, working between the tides, and not obviously not leaving a mark on the beach of crews and equipment, tire marks, etc. And that was planned very well, and we storyboarded it, knew what the shots were, knew exactly what the shots were required for that location. We'd recce'd it a couple of months before filming, and we did another little sort of mini recce on the day just before we filmed, just to make sure everything was all right. And I find with those battle scenes, actually, as long as the fight coordinator, stunt coordinator, really knows what they're doing, and they really did know what they were doing, and could communicate clearly to their stuntmen, who are made up the bulk of the fighters. It generally was a question of breaking the fight down into little bite-sized chunks, maybe sort of 30-second, 20-second portions. We used 3 cameras. You have one camera looking at one side, one other camera looking at the other side, and then a third camera roving between the two. And you do it 4 or 5 times on different size lenses. And then you have a pass. You probably have pass with a handheld Steadicam, just going through the action, just seeing grabbing what they can, a couple of cameras, and then you've sort of got it. You've got all the coverage you need. And generally, I would say each of those. So for like a 2-minute battle sequence, each of those 20-second chunks probably takes about 2 or 3 hours to film. So you can get an awful lot done in one day if you have it all planned out, and everybody knows what the director knows exactly what he wants and knows what's not working, and when it's not working, how to move on. And cameras are completely set up. They know exactly where they need to be, and you treat it like it's a bit like a kind of live filming, really. It's like, I remember I don't want to sound glib or anything, but I remember being a cameraman on a soap once when I was really young. I got to say, it was one of the biggest adrenaline rush I've ever had filming, because you knew you had to get from point A to point B in half an hour, and there was no turning back. And once you got going and you're being, barked all these instructions in your ear, and you had to know exactly what shot was coming up and knew where to get the camera and be ready. It's sort of like that, I think. That's closest I've come to that kind of experience, because once you start, you can't get off, and you have to get it right and then move on to the next part. But if you try and do too much, it'll all fall apart. So you really have to kind of do it in little bite-sized sections. This bit of the battle, that bit of the battle, this bit of action, that bit of action, and then you put it all together.
Were you influenced by other shows, maybe Game of Thrones, that type of thing? Or were your budget much less than most people's budgets are? But
not really, no. I mean, the one reference that I kind of brought to the table was actually Jacob's Ladder, the opening scene in Jacob's Ladder, where the platoon ends up being bombed by their own side. They don't know it, but that's what the scenario is. And it was that type of sort of fast and furious, confused type of battle that the director, Ed, really responded to. And that's what we did. It was not, I have to say, we didn't look at Game of Thrones at all.
Good, okay.
Then their sequences are fantastic, but just didn't need to really. I mean, it was very clear on the page how the scenes should play out, and you just find some nice visual references, and you choose the right locations and hope for the right light, and it kind of makes itself.
What about big tech? Did you have any techno cranes in there, or how did you move the cameras?
No. The Last Kingdom is a handheld show,
right?
95% of the time. So no, on that opening sequence, there was a drone. There's a drone. There's always a drone on battle scenes. So you get a few sort of swooping shots, and generally it's useful just if you need to know kind of where everybody is, who's on what side and who's on the other side. And suddenly, if it does get a bit confusing, you can cut to the drone shot and you see, all right, here's the good guys on the left, here's the bad guys on the right, and get back to it. But no, it was, we had 3 handheld cameras and Steadicam. So Steadicam would double up for, would jump between Steadicam and handheld. And sometimes one of the handheld cameras would, if you couldn't get the 3 cameras into the scene without really fighting to keep one of them out of shot, the third camera would just sit back on a much longer lens and shoot on a 300 or 400 and pick out little bits of action, which look really good, actually. I think the long lens, there's a nice, I always think in those fight scenes, if you can mix close, wide, aggressive, fast-moving handheld shots with very, very long lens, compressed, monumental shots, it lends itself to the best sort of type of montage in the edit.
Sure. And I mean, looking at the approved list, Netflix approved list, camera and lens wise, what was the package that was put in front of you, or were
Well,
you part of that decision?
it's a good question, and it's it. I don't. I never quite got to the bottom of it, because when I first signed on to do The Last Kingdom, knowing it was Netflix, I said to the line producer, said to the producer, so we have to shoot 4K. We're going to be on the Red or the Venice or what? And she said, no, just do it the way we've always done it on the Alexa Mini, which was
Okay.
2K. And it wasn't an argument I was going to need to have. It was just purely information. And so I assumed that they knew what they'd been signed off by Netflix, and it had been agreed on, and it was a formula that had worked before, and for whatever reason they were going to stick with it, and so that's what we did. I don't know whether it had anything to do with perhaps The Last Kingdom being produced by an independent production company, not being a direct Netflix production, whether that had anything to do with sort of compliance of formats and being able to have a little bit of flexibility. But whatever it was, whatever the reasons were, we just shot Alexa Mini and Zeiss Ultra Primes.
Perhaps they're happy with the upres in post, and I've heard that before.
Well, I guess they must have done. I haven't been involved at all in the post, but it all looked pretty good looked pretty good to me. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between. I wouldn't be able to tell if it had been shot on a larger format camera or a higher resolution. It was to me, it looked as good as it could possibly look.
And of course, that camera moves beautifully around, obviously on Steadicam and handheld.
Yeah,
and you're used to it.
It's very easy. I mean, it's just a really easy camera to work with, and actually we got on the second block that I shot on, we did get a little, well, I can't call it a crane. It was an old jib arm. And we managed to get hold of an old hothead as well. So we kept that for the duration of that block, and got a few nice little crane shots in. I mean, I can show you actually, if you can I show you?
Sure.
Because it was because it was quite a small crane, and we had very resourceful grip. So, it was not even on a crane base. You just put it on a little bazooka base, and you could put it on track, but we were able to get it into some really tight little spots, and get shots like that, through the gully there, where, we've never been able to get a conventional crane or even a sort of a bigger jib arm down there on the river there.
Yeah. It's pretty tight, isn't it?
Yeah, get a shot close to the, starting off on the water and then craning up. And then, it's a 12-foot arm, so it really gave us a good bit of production value for such a innocuous bit of kit. And actually, the production, in all fairness, they would probably said, well, if you want a crane, we'll get you a crane, and you can have a crane if you want. But we wouldn't have been able to use it because the locations were so inhospitable and inaccessible that actually that little device served us perfectly.
But you had builds, villages and well, obviously not castles, but some villages. Are they from the last series, or were they brand new?
The main Winchester. I don't know why Winchester. The Winchester village or town, that's a standing set, but it's a very modular set. So, for example, they kind of carve a bit of it out, which is Egelsberg, but then Egelsberg changes through the series. The Egelsberg in this series was quite different to the Egelsberg in the last series, and then we used the far end of the Winchester set became the Bebenberg Castle Keep courtyard for the big fight at the end of episode 1 and beginning of episode 2. So it's a big back lot that has a standing set for Winchester, around which a lot of bits of it are pulled down and rebuilt as other things.
I got you. Okay. All right. And just maybe finally, the lighting side of things. I mean, just talking about the wind problem or the wind part of it. What kind of lighting did you use throughout your show, your
Well,
episodes?
we use fairly conventional lighting units, but the big stuff was really good because the gaffer Zolt built these huge sky panel soft boxes out of
Right.
612 sky panels with a big silk around them that he put on the Manitous and Genie Booms, and they were very stable and produced a beautiful soft light. So we used those on all the night exteriors, and it was great because we could have, generally we would have 3 of them. It was you just triangulate them, 3-point lighting. You have a big field or a big set, and you put them in, you put them opposite each other, and because they all ran back to the sky panel DMX controller. You could dim them, change the color on them. You could change the color on half the lamps, or make one half one color, one half the other color, and the turnarounds are very fast because backlight could become a fill light, and the fill light could become a key light, and just by these very quick adjustments on the dimmer, and the gaffer would be right there by the monitor calling it in as we move. Again, I can show you some pictures of the machines that we used. You can see here, this is
Okay.
this is just while it was sorry, this is while it was still light, and I've got a picture of the inside of it too. That's it on the ground there, and then right. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sense of what the inside looks like. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 10 sky panel S60s. So you can see here, for example.
Okay.
And it's a great light, so it's a moonlight. It's lovely to have a soft moonlight because it's such a big source. And that was, that's kind of a little picture of the monitor from the scene. So I think there was an 18K on a cherry picker across the water, kind of giving the harder light, and then the soft light was filling it in. See here, can you see that? Did all the so all the boat work in beginning of episode 2 was all done in the tank on blue screen, but we ended up having to do a lot of night for day because we'd run out of light. But what these softbox enabled us to do. So here's a good example, actually. That was an 18K on a cherry picker, just to create some. This is a day scene. But we shot. We were having to keep shooting after it got dark. So the 18K was a backlight, and that I call it just the moon box, or whatever you like to call it, gives you a kind of skylight feel. And we shot probably, I'd say, if you look at that opening 10 minutes of episode 2, where it's all on the boat, probably 15% of it was shot when it was pitch black and just lit in like this.
And do you get the grader to help you with that, or is it fine out of the camera?
It's good enough out of the it's fine out of the camera, and it only hardly needed any grading at all. But I actually couldn't have done that without that quality of big soft lighting on a cherry picker that can be as maneuverable and as flexible as that. So I was very grateful to the Hungarian electricians for being able to put that. They basically built those machines out of nothing, and we, as I said, 3 of them, and we could do anything. And if you throw an 18K on top of that, then you really, you got everything you could possibly want.
Brilliant. Okay.
So the night scenes, we could shoot them extremely quickly, really fast.
It's great to talk to you again, and reminisce a little bit and learn about The Last Kingdom, which is highly recommended,
Oh.
and it's just hit Netflix.
Well, thank you very much, Julian, and
All
it's
right.
a real pleasure to talk to you and share any insights.
Cheers now.